there you go, the sights and sounds of Bergamo. Well, the route today, again, a different one, as appears to be the want this year, sees yet another course change with a new challenging finale featuring 3 brutal climbs. Weather forecast not too bad today, 16 degrees. We've had a few flurries of rain, a light breeze, but at the finale at the moment as they head in, the riders do have the sun on their backs, but the race departs southbound from Bergamo, crossing the Bergamo plain for the first 40 Ks, joining the Cavallina Valley. Then, of course, we have the climbs of the Colle Gallo, the Colle Brianza, and then the peloton descends to the towns of Pescate, followed by the Valmadere and Ogiono. The legendary climb of the Madonna di Sallo is at 754 meters, 14%, a tough climb. There's the 3 finishing climbs we were talking about. The riders are about to embark upon the wall of Sormano, and then they face the Civiglio in the final climb before the drop into the finish, San Fermo della Battaglia. There's the profile. A very, very difficult finale. We'll be joining live pictures very, very shortly indeed to see what the situation is. And there we go. We had a big breakaway earlier on in the day that took around 7 or 8 minutes, but the 5 riders on your screen at the moment are being chased by this group. You can just see Verona there of Ethics Quickstep. Just behind him, the former world road champion Michal Kwiatkowski. Tim Wellens is also in that group. We also have Tom Jelte Slagter of the Netherlands in that move as well. Very, very good group, closing in on the leaders. This is the chasing group. Jan Polans of Lampre is there. Izagirre also there of Movistar, just sat at the back. And the last man in that group, one of the survivors of the early breakaway, is Simon Geschke of Germany and John Alpecin, starting to struggle perhaps a little bit at the moment, but an absolutely fascinating to the finale to this race. And alongside me, to take us through these hopefully thrilling 53.5 kilometers is another monument winner himself, Magnus Backstedt. Magnus, we're right at the back end of this race, and I think we're on, well, without a shadow of a doubt, the hardest climb of the day today.
Well, certainly the final bit of this climb is absolutely brutal, with ramps of 25–30%, and you know, after a big day out there already, certainly a fair few riders are going to feel this one, and you know, the tempo's been pushed on by Astana and Trek Factory Racing back in the peloton as well. So this race is by no means over just yet.
No, the climb we're talking about, as we see Astana setting the pace. This is the climb. It comes at about, the tops out at about 50 kilometers to go. The Colma di Sormano. It's 1.920 kilometers in length. Average gradient of 15.8%. But the significant thing about this particular climb, it's an absolute brute. Maxes out at between 25 and at 27% gradient. It was used in the Lombardia a few years ago, back in the 60s. But the riders essentially went on strike, refused to use it. And it was almost, if a climb can be mothballed, that's what happened to it. And it came back after a local group of riders petitioned for the road to be resurfaced. That's what happened. And there we go. You can just see all the graphics. It's very, very narrow indeed. All the graphics on the road, all the stencils on the road. Each meter, as you can see, is marked out. An agonizing haul to the line at the top of this climb. It is a really iconic climb. It has been resurfaced, far better surface than was used in the 60s, and the lead group of riders are just on its fearsome slopes now. The last pro rider to ride over the top first was Romain Bardet a couple of years back, 2012, when Joaquim Rodriguez ran out the winner of this race. But still with 53 kilometers to go. A lot of racing still to go. The peloton still full of fight. We'll get some time gaps as soon as we know them. But the rider on the front at the moment is Marco Canola of Italy, 26-year-old, riding for United Healthcare. And again, this is the group that has been out in front for most of the day. And still, Magnus looked to be full of fight.
Yeah, well, certainly a couple of them are looking very strong indeed. Benedetto is so far looking very comfortable on these climbs. Although when you're coming up to a steep climb like this, you know, it tends to sort of take an awful lot out of you. So you need to certainly have a fair amount of energy left in your legs to get up this one. And as you can see there, 25% at the steepest point. And when we're looking at what capabilities we have sitting in the peloton here, Vincenzo Nibali sitting there on the back of the sort of light blue Astana colours. He's certainly another rider who's going to want to really give this a go, and probably, I think, the outright favourite for today's race, Alejandro Valverde, also sitting up here near the very much on the shoulder, effectively, of Vincenzo Nibali.
Well, Nibali's got some great form at the moment. He's ridden this race 8 times in the past and has had some splendid form on the Coppa Bernocchi and in the Tre Valli Varesin. And he missed the recent Grand Piemonte, won by Jan Backlund, so age 2 up. Instead, to focus purely on studying this climb, and this is where the road narrows. This is where it really starts to ramp up in a few moments' time. The rider just sat on the front at the moment as they go through a little bit of surface water. They need to have some very, very low gears on now and get that gear engaged nice and early.
Yeah, definitely. You want to make sure you get down onto the little chainring quickly, but you can almost see the hesitation of the riders as they turn off, and they know exactly what's waiting right now. And this is it's so difficult when you're doing these 25-30% climbs, because effectively you have one speed, and whatever that ends up being, it is what it is. You can't really dig any deeper or go any faster. Slowing down is the same thing.
Look at that. I mean, that's something I've not seen before. Absolutely fascinating. Each of these brutal meters marked out 1 meter at a time. This is the group that's just behind. This is Verona. Kwiatkowski on his wheel. And again, a few of the remnants of the group that was out in front. But this is an interesting scenario here. We've got Astana chasing. Earlier in the day, we saw Team Sky take up the chase. Movistar also assisted Tim Wellens there on the right-hand side. This is where the road really starts to pitch up. Magnus, in my cycling career and in my short commentary career so far, I don't think I've ever seen a climb so brutally marked out with each meter. I mean, you don't mind people saying, 500 meters to go, it flattens off, but to see each meter on the road, that's psychologically very, very demanding.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I mean, it's okay when you're going well and you're feeling strong on the climb, but when you're starting to suffer, then knowing exactly how far you got to go, that's a bit cruel, borderline.
You can just see them here. This is where the steepest part of the climb is. Marco Canola of Italy, the 26-year-old, trying to keep seated. And Magnus, on these sorts of ridiculous gradients that we see, sometimes actually staying in the saddle is a little bit easier because you keep the traction. Because if you get the balance wrong and you lean forward too much, the back wheel can lose traction, especially in these slightly slippery conditions we have today.
Yeah, when the surface is wet, then it becomes very difficult to actually keep the traction on the back wheel. But equally, when you're sitting down and you're getting up 25 towards 30%, then the front wheels tends to start getting light and actually popping off the ground. So you end up in a very, very funny position with regards to, how you're putting the power down. It looked like Geschke is just getting caught by the peloton here. But yeah, it's very difficult, and sometimes, without this sounding, it's going to sound a bit strange, but it's actually almost harder for your arms to cope with the counter holding all the power and the torque that you're having to put into the bike than it is for your legs when it gets up to this steep.
I would have to agree with you every moment of the way there. Sometimes it is the stress, and not so much the stress of going into oxygen jet, because sometimes it's difficult on a steep climb. It's just the stress of the pain in your arms. Here's the crowd. Here's the Tifosi over the top of this climb. The names of the greats etched onto the road as our 2 leaders. Canola grind away. Benedetti on the left-hand side in the black of the German squad. Bora Argon 18. Again, these 2 riders, survivors, 907 meters, 908 meters, 909. Each meter ticks by so slowly. They've opened up a bit of a gap on the riders behind. The rider just in 3rd place there in the grey jersey was Matteo Bussato. This rider here for Bardiani CSF is Enrico Barman, the 25-year-old Italian. And it looks like Tim Wellens of Lotto. Fine form at the moment. Took a win in Canada a few weeks back.
Yep.
Again, one of my favourite riders, I must admit, at the moment. So aggressive. Took out the Eneco Tour again. Back-to-back victories there. But look at the blue, all on the front of Astana, trying to reel these guys in.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult for them as well, because obviously we've still got some time to go to the finish, so difficult problem.
So 51 kilometers to go. We're on the climb of the Muro di Sormano, the wall of Sormano, literally translated 25 to 27% gradient each meter, marked out with a stencil at the side of the road. Just looking down in that group at the moment, being led by Asner, I can just see the bobbing figure of Thibaut Pinot of FDJ. Here's a great shot of the group just behind our lead, is being led by Tim Wellens, who's fighting his bike all the way. They're just about to absorb the rider from southeast. That's Matteo Bossato. Absolutely brutal slopes here. Good to see Tom Jelte-Slagter in the mix. This really is a race. I think looking back at the last few editions of the Tour of Lombardia, as it's more commonly known, this looks like, without a doubt, one of the most brutal finales we've seen in a few years.
Yeah, well, it definitely does. I mean, the Madonna di Gisalo is usually a climb that that is in this race, but it's become, they've sort of gotten slightly further away from the finish all the time, which means there's less emphasis on that particular climb. But you know, they've managed to round up a few other brutes of climbs to go up, and you know, although we're still talking 50 kilometers to the finish line, it effectively becomes a drop-off race where, you know, you're losing 5-10 guys out of the group, out of the peloton every time you go up one of these steep climbs, and we still have a couple of more to go before we're getting into the proper finale of this bike race.
We certainly are. And look at the ride, just like the breakaway has finally been absorbed. Tim Wellens in the red of Lotto Soudal. You can just see him in the center of your screen. Now they're still a few meters behind.
Kwiatkowski looking very good there as well on the wheel of Tim Wellens. He's certainly looking probably the most comfortable out of everyone at the moment.
He certainly is. Look at the way Wellens is fighting his bike, the way the riders having to throw their weight around just to keep that forward momentum. Make sure we get these motorbikes out of the way. We don't want to see a situation like we saw in San Sebastian. Good to see the riders being given plenty of space. You could probably walk up to the same speed as these riders, Magnus. Absolutely brutal slopes.
Well, it definitely is. And I think that the problem for the guys today is as well to find a gear selection, you know, using a small enough front chain ring to allow them to have to get up this climb. But then obviously on the other slopes, that when you want to ride a small chain ring, you haven't quite got the right gearing for it. So it becomes a, you know, do you fight up this one, or do you sort of over pedal the other climbs, and that will have an impact on your energy levels at the back end of the race as well. But here comes Kwiatkowski.
Kwiatkowski looking ominously strong at the moment. He takes the head of the race now. Wellens there in third. The two riders for Lotto NL Jumbo. Robert Heesink is there. Number 203, Dennis Van Winden. His teammate is also there. Tim Wellens bobbing away up these brutal slopes, just trying to get back in contact with the back wheel of the former world road race champion. This is an interesting situation. Just look at the way he's fighting the bike as each meter of this climb, this brute, ticks by, to some very generous applause by the Tifosi.
I've got to say, I'm very impressed with Benedetti, how good he's still looking. And here we go, it's all the team cars waiting for their turn.
Yeah, it looks like we have a bit of gridlock at the bottom there. They're maybe waiting for the riders to get through. This is the problem when they must have a deviation. We know that Vincenzo Nibali had a look at the course, the last 100 kilometers of this course the other day, but this was the one climb he decided to put to one side and not attempt, but I don't blame him. But look at the stunning views as Kwiatkowski, as you said a few moments ago, Magnus, looks very, very comfortable. Wellens just behind. This is the sort of climb you have to ride your own race. There's no real point in trying to follow other riders. It's about making sure as best you can you don't go into the red, just keeping that forward momentum.
Yeah, the problem is when it gets steep like this, you can't actually follow other riders. You have one speed, and it is what it is. And you know, if you're trying to sort of accelerate on this, that it usually lasts for about 15 to 20 meters, and then you get shut down again, and effectively having to sit down and try and find your rhythm. So you can't really go faster, you can't really go slower. It just ends up being what it is. And although, you know, with 50 kilometers to go here, there's enough time for this group to kind of regroup a little bit. Maybe not the full group that we had previously, but certainly, you know, 4 or 5 riders getting together and driving on from here.
This is pure Italian passion. Look at the crowd getting behind Michał Kwiatkowski, moving to Team Sky for 2016 and 2017, but wearing that Etixx Quick-Step jersey and those bands that he can wear for the rest of his career on the tips of his jersey sleeves with pride. But there's the shark himself, Vincenzo Nibali, in the jersey of a national Italian road champion. Look at that, there's a rather elderly gentleman that's finding it very easy to walk alongside Tim Wellens there, still trying to get back in contact with Michał Kwiatkowski. But Magnus, at the top of this climb, as you say, we have got quite a steep, nasty technical descent, and around 30 k's of generally flat riding before the penultimate climb of the Cibiglio. So quite a lot of time for riders to get back in contact and regroup.
Yeah, you're right on that one, and you know, the descent is fairly technical, but still certainly, you know, it's when it becomes technical, then the riders can actually, in a smaller group, open up a further gap. But at the same time, you don't want to take any risks going down here. You see, like I said, there's 30 kilometers to go on the flat. You know, there's very, very little in between these guys now. As you see, the Vincenzo Nibali getting on the front, and you can just around the corner there was Kwiatkowski.
They said Warren Barguil just goes past there. Here's some riders just towards the back of the group, just coming up. There's one of the Yates brothers just coming through here, just towards the back. Looks like the Frenchman from Lotto Soudal is also there. Tony Galopin in the mix.
Visconti,
a local lad. You'll know these roads very, very well indeed. It's like Brambilla. Rui Costa just coming through as well. Veremos, Romain Bardet also there just on the wheel. Look at them fighting. Darwin Atapuma, Vasily Kirienko also coming through, the new world time trial champion. Looks like Davide Formolo just going round the outside as well there. Leopold Koenig just going over the top of this climb. Absolutely brutal. Frank Schleck hauling his body. The oldest man in the race there, David Rebellin, and the defending champion, Dan Martin. This climb has absolutely detonated this peloton.
Yeah, there'll be a fair bit of time trialing in the small group team, time trialing after this now, trying to get back into races and try and regroup. It's going to be quite a hard one. Here's Philippe Gilbert as well, not having a good day.
He's certainly not liking this slope. There's another one of the Yates brothers. There's Pete Kenyak going through for Team Sky as well. And this is the last of the group just going over. Looks like Ainao just managing to get over the top. A look of desperation on his face. But meanwhile, we head down the descent. Oh, Tim Wellens took that descent rather wide there. Thankfully, he stayed upright. You've got to be so careful with these leaves on the road and those wet patches, Magnus.
Yeah, the wet patches is something that's very difficult when you're descending, because you can enter into a turn and it will be dry, and then halfway around the corner, all of a sudden you got damp surface, and obviously the grip on the road goes down dramatically at that point. So you kind of need to ride this with an idea of, you know, going through the corner and actually thinking, okay, at this point I might just have to go slower.
I think it was just a bit of a tight moment there. We just saw Tim Wellens just going through the inside. That didn't look too bad to me. But they're working well together. We're going to take our first commercial break before we get back to the action. Please keep it here on Eurosport, the home of cycling. Welcome back to Il Lombardia. An interesting slow motion there of Michał Kwiatkowski. I don't know what he was gesturing at, but perhaps the fact that they needed to slow down in that fog.
Well, I think actually he wanted a motorbike ahead of him so he could see what he's where he's going. You know, he could at that point follow the brake lights or the actual lights of the car itself, of the motorbike itself, which gives him an option to. You know, he can see when the bike brakes, he can see where it turns and all that sort of stuff. And most of the time, it's actually something that you, as a rider, want to have, is that motorbike, so you know when how tight the turns are. Obviously, when the switchbacks, it's relatively easy to work out. But sometimes some of these longer sweeping turns, you never quite know how tight they're going to be at the back end. So yeah, get a motorbike ahead of them.
Well, interesting stuff there, but we're going to take a quick interview with Vincenzo and Nibali.
Vincenzo, sei il favorito, questo non c'è dubbio.
Ma il favorito dipende da chi lo dice o no, quindi sicuramente in questo momento sto bene, sono
Yeah, I'm the favourite, just depends on my form.
Di stagione con la Tre Valli e altre gare. E quindi questo
I hope to be in a good position at the end of the day.
Un percorso molto duro, molto difficile. Vediamo come saranno poi le energie nel finale.
Lombardy is a difficult race.
Come ho detto, il finale è molto insidioso.
You need to keep something back for the finale. And the finale in this race is very, very intense.
Come sarà tutta la gestione della corsa, non sarà semplice.
My opponents are strong, and I know it's not going to be easy. It certainly isn't going to be easy. But Magnus, of all the teams in this race, when you look at the riders that Vincenzo Nibali has at his disposal, very strong squad. We know he's got Mikel Landa moving across to Sky, but again, worked tirelessly for Fabio Aru. And I think off the back of winning the Vuelta, they'd like to get a monument.
Yeah, I definitely think they would, and I think Nibali would like to finish off the season on a strong note as well. You know, obviously there's a few more riders in that crew there. Certainly in the group of effectively is just pure favourites right now. You know, so many guys are going to want to finish off the season, the last big monument of the season in a dramatic fashion, and go across to new teams. Effectively, a certain of them anyway, with that sort of final win under the belt.
Well, at the moment it's Mikel Landa just chaperoning his team leader. Just on third wheel at the moment, Vincenzo Nibali, down this sinuous, treacherous, twisty, glacious at some point descent. As we talked about, it's the change in road surface and also the change in the wet and dry tarmac that's very, very difficult. You come into a corner, you think you've got the right speed because it's dry, then just on the exit you have a puddle. You've got to be so focused and concentrating. You cannot relax for one moment.
No, it tends to be, you usually enter the corners with slightly less speed. You scrub off a lot of speed going into the corner, and then you sort of, as soon as you see that, okay, this is all right, you've got a clear line of sight out of the corner, then you let go of any brakes and you can actually open up and get on the pedals a bit. But you have to sort of hold back going into every turn, because as it is here, you can see clearly that certain patches, very, very nice and dry, and then all of a sudden you've got a wet patch and some leaves on top of that, so you never really know how good a grip you're actually going to have going through the full turn.
There you go, confirmation of who is in this group. Tom Jelte-Slagter, Mikel Landa, Benedetti, we've seen him before, Nibali, Diego Rosa, a man in very, very good form. There's Alejandro Valverde, Warren Barguil is also there. Haysink, very, very elite group of climbers. We know Wout Poels of Team Sky is just at the back of that group as well, but currently being led down very smoothly, I may add, by Mikel Landa. Diego Rosa is in second place, took a win the other day himself, with the man that's one of the out-and-out favourite, I think, or one of the key favourites for this race, just in third wheel, just negotiating that corner. Not many riders left in the mix, but as we say, Magnus, a few riders just getting back on terms, and after the bottom of this descent, things do flatten out, and I think we'll see the race possibly settle down. That group may swell a little bit, as we see the lead 28 seconds before we hit the two final climbs of the day.
Yeah, I think you're right. The problem is going to be, obviously, Astana are still going to want to drive this on, because they're in a position where they got some riders left in this front group. The rest of the guys are effectively more or less there on their own. But there will be, well, all the other teams will have to sit and try and wait and try and sort of see if they can get some more riders, some more teammates back into the front group, so they got a little bit more strength in numbers. But at the same time, you know, the race is on, and you're going to have to chase back on. So I'd be quite interested to see the sort of amount of risks being taken down the back of this group here now, and certainly the riders trying to catch on and through all these twisty technical turns, but absolutely stunning descent.
It is absolutely gorgeous. You could just sit back, absorb it. It is a beautiful race.
I want to be in there. I want to be on it and do the descent.
Maybe the descents, maybe not the climbs.
No,
I mean,
no,
I'll be happy. I'll be with you on the descents. Maybe not the climbs. Absolutely brutal. But just, I mean, how stressful is it descending like this? I mean, at the back end of a race, you've just been over the brutal climb. Again, you can't relax, and there is stresses on your back and your neck muscles, and we saw Michał Kwiatkowski just getting up, having a little bit of a stretch. You can almost get locked into position if you don't keep stretching your arms and your shoulders.
Yeah, you can do, and certainly with this one, you're on the brakes all the time. You're sort of almost tensing up because of the potential lack of grip as well. And the one thing that you need to do when you have the lack of grip is stay very, very loose and supple on the bike and follow the movement. So yeah.
43.3 kilometers to go. Keep it here for Il Lombardia on Eurosport. Astana lead the chase in the 109th edition of Il Lombardia. That is the beautiful, glittering sight of Lake Como. Some of the most breathtaking views in the world. And some breathtaking descending has taken place. The duo out in front, Tim Wellens of Belgium in the red for Lotto Soudal on his wheel from Poland, and Etixx Quick-Step is the former world road champion Michał Kwiatkowski. We've seen some rather interesting descending techniques, two contrasting techniques on this descent. While we're away of the advert, we saw Tim Wellens just cut inside a few times, Magnus Backstedt. There's a couple of shady moments, had me on the edge of my seat. I don't know about you at home, but finally the road has started to flatten as we get onto the shores of Como. And here's the group behind. And as you said, as you alluded to, Magnus, Astana now need to keep this pace high, otherwise that group is going to swell and become a little bit unmanageable.
Yeah, it will become too big, and obviously they're down to just effectively two domestiques and Nibali here, so it's in their interest to keep pressuring on, but by the looks of it, you know, the group has swollen quite a bit, although not completely, and there's still a fair few riders here trying to chase back on, and this will keep on going until effectively the foothills of the Civiglio, and then, you know, is there anyone who can really get back into this race? That's going to be the question. There are a few teams in the front group there, in the Nibali group, should we call it, that still have some teammates. You know, there are some numbers in there, but not masses, and it'd be interesting to see which teams decide to actually come up there, give Astana a bit of a hand, and keep the pace high to effectively make sure that no one else gets back into the game.
Well, that's the situation that we find ourselves in as we look at Como. Major landmarks include the gorge of the same name here, that's Neso, as the lake reaches a maximum depth of 410 meters. That's a very, very deep lake indeed. Very cold, I'd imagine, right at the bottom. But again, marvellous, spectacular views. And a gorgeous day greeting the riders. Looks like a gel wrapper just jettisoned to the side of the road there by Michał Kwiatkowski. 39.2 kilometers to go in the race of the fallen leaves. This is a pretty good duo behind. We talked about Astana having strength in numbers. We've got three riders in the move behind, but looking down the line, there's lots of teams with just one rider. We've got two riders from Lotto NL Jumbo there in the yellow, Robert Haysink, and we believe it's actually George Bennett of New Zealand, number 202. Just at the back of that group is Romain Bardet. But as you say, no real team has the same strength in numbers. All those riders there look to be looking after themselves. And the one rider in there from Etixx Quick-Step certainly not going to be able to help with the chase. Meanwhile, we're going to have a quick chat with a two-time winner of the race of the Falling Leaves, Philippe Gilbert of BMC.
Philippe Gilbert, the final 60-70 kilometers are different this year. Can you do well on this course?
Yeah, they are very very hard. It's like up and down always, from 60k to go to the finish, and very quite hard climbs also, so we have to be like in front but also very strong.
Rarely are there so many favourites for Lombardia. What do you do? Do you wait? Do you ride your own race? Do you look at Valverde? Nibali has to go from a long way out. Lots of options.
Yeah, it's a lot of options, but you know, at the end of the season, the World Tour ranking is also playing a big role, the individual one and the team ones. So it's like sometimes you see guys chasing the order or teams chasing other teams, and then you just understand the reason the day after when you see the newspapers, you know.
Well, there we go. Playing his cards close to his chest. We don't know if he's in this group, but he was struggling a little bit on the climb we saw just a few kilometers ago before this descent. I mean, we know Philippe Gilbert can ride this course particularly well. It doesn't look like we have anybody from BMC in the mix. Another rider from Lotto just sat back. We think that's Galopin of France. A couple of riders from Etixx Quick-Step sat near the back, of course. Danny Moreno was there, just sat on the wheel of the Spanish champion. and world number 1 at the moment, Alejandro Valverde. What a consistent season he has. Again, looking at the betting
every year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just I mean, again, a rider that does win, admit it divides opinion, but his consistency is fascinating and remarkable.
Well, I totally agree with that, and this is the group, I think, with Philippe Gilbert in it on the front here.
This is the group just trying to get back in terms. I think if he's going to do it, they need to do it now. There are a few kilometres of flattish roads before we hit the penultimate climb of the Civiglio, and that comes with 16.6 kilometres to go. And then the final climb with 5.3 k's to go before the plummet down to the finish in Como is San Fermo della Battaglia. But Philippe Gilbert trying to get on terms, and I don't know if he's going to get any assistance from riders there from Movistar. They certainly won't. They'll be happy, I would imagine. Katusha won't assist either, so it's all up to Philippe Gilbert to try and get back on terms. There you go. An illustration of the frustration on the Belgian's face there.
Yeah, I don't, like you said, I don't think he's going to get any help from anyone. Pretty much every rider in that group has got a teammate up the road, and you know, letting Gilbert, or giving Gilbert a hand to get back into the race effectively means that you're bringing a potential race winner back into the mix, and you know, that would be something that is certainly would have a few words by your team bosses if you did.
Yeah, especially if they watch the highlights on Eurosport tonight and over a massage and saw that he was brought back in contention. So no surprises there as we see Tim Wellens in that very familiar position we've come to see over the last couple of years, really broken through this year. Won the Eneco last year. Again, not a position that I particularly like, resting on the bars there, but a position that so many riders seem to favour because it's so aerodynamic.
Yeah, it is aerodynamic, but effectively they banned the Spinacci handlebars, which were effectively like tiny little time trial bars that we weren't allowed to use them anymore. And then, but it seems to be okay not to hold on to the handlebars at all. I don't quite get the idea of that whole thing, and certainly for, you know, the problem isn't necessarily these guys doing it. They're professional bike riders. They're out there doing it every day of the week. But when you start looking at the youngsters in the clubs around the world, and we're talking as young as, you know, 10, 12 years old, doing exactly the same thing, then that's not exactly the right kind of message that we're sending to the youngsters.
Well, there we go. They are, yeah, certainly an aerodynamic position, but one you need to adopt only if you're pretty sure of yourself. As we head back to the front, bit of a conversation going on here. Kwiatkowski having a quick word with Tim Wellens as he rolls through in that position that we've just been discussing. And again, talking about those Spinacci bars, they actually shaved 5 minutes off my ride to work back in the day. Very, very efficient bars. And again, 32 kilometres to go now. We haven't got a time check on our two leaders. We know it's hovering around half a minute. Hopefully we'll get those stats back on the screen for you. But this duo definitely working very, very fluidly together. And you need to have a word with Michał Kwiatkowski as well, Maggie.
Well, apparently. No, like I said, it's fine for these guys to do it, but yeah, the problem is everyone is trying to sort of imitate and take after what they do as well.
We're going to take another commercial break. Stay with us here on Il Lombardia. Welcome back to Il Lombardia. 30 kilometres to go. The gap to our two leaders, just over 1 minute. Still being led by the troops from Astana. Mikel Landa doing the lion's share of the work, and there he is at the front with Diego Rosa on his wheel. Vincenzo Nibali sat in third place. The young Colombian sensation, what a ride he had in the Vuelta a España this year. Esteban Chavez looking very comfortable and just on his wheel. Arguably the favourite for this race, looking very, very steely and very, very focused is Alejandro Valverde. But meanwhile, this man, Philippe Gilbert, struggling, Magnus, to get back in contact.
Yeah, he definitely is, but he's now putting some huge turns on the front and has effectively got himself away, and at that point it becomes easy because you're not dragging someone else with you, although he's got one man on the wheel.
Philippe Gilbert, double winner of Il Lombardia, fighting to stay in contact. Dragging with him one of the riders from Katusha. Meanwhile, we look down the finishing straight. 29 kilometres to go. Our two leaders have just over a minute on the chasing bunch. Still working in complete unison together, sharing the turns on these twisting roads. skirting round the lake. Remember, 2 significant climbs still to come. The Civiglio, 4.2 kilometers in length, with an average gradient of 9.7 kilometers, with the maxing out at 14%, very steep. And then they move on to the San Fermo de Battaglia, and that comes with just over 5 kilometers to go. Not quite as steep, but 7% over 2.7 Ks. Magnus, those 2 climbs will definitely make a difference in this race. There's already been quite a big natural selection, but surely all the fireworks are going to happen on those 2 climbs.
Well, I think the Civiglio definitely will provide a fair amount of issues for most of the riders in here. It's long enough and steep enough to really be a significant climb. Although the final climb there, it comes in as well as you know, like you said, just around 7%. It's a good springboard for anyone really having wanting to put in a final move. So these 2 riders are certainly going to have their work cut out to stay away over the next 20 kilometers or so.
It looks like Rui Costa is one of the riders that Philippe Gilbert has managed to recruit to try and get in that convoy. That looks as if they are in the convoy. That group in front is in between these 2 riders on your screen, led by Astana. It's well into about 20-25 riders in that group.
Yeah, but it just shows the commitment from Philippe Gilbert. He's realised he's not going to get any help from anyone else, so he decided to take off on his own and actually put the work in to try and get back into the race. And that just shows how important this bike race is for him and his team. And I really quite like the way he's done that.
Yeah, he certainly rides with a lot of passion, doesn't he? Certainly a lot of grit and determination, and as you say, it's so important. He tries to get back in contact now. When you're trying to cross a gap, Magnus, it's so important, especially at this crucial point in a race. It's not really about pacing yourself. Obviously, you don't want to put yourself into the red and explode, but it's now or never. You have to make that gap. You can't hesitate. You can't relax. Otherwise, you can't kind of spread that effort over too long, because it will just start to drift away, and it's so hard to sustain.
Well, it is a sort of be-all, end-all. You got to get in there. You got to get back onto the wheel again. And if he does that now, then he has a couple of kilometers at least to try and sort of recover a bit. Like you said, 16 kilometers is the top of the Civiglio, so we're going to have to take a couple of kilometers off that as well before you know, when we actually start climbing. So he's effectively got what, 7 kilometers to go, maybe less.
He's got it all to do, and doesn't seem to be getting that much assistance, so it is now or never before they hit that penultimate climb. But there you go. This is Como, founded by Giuliano Cesare in 59 BC, and also birthplace of Pliny the Elder, commander of the early Roman Empire, who died during the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD, Magnus, in fact. And also Alessandro Volta was born here, the man who gave his name to the unit for electrical potential differences, the Volt.
Well, there we go.
It's a cultural lesson, this race, isn't it?
Something every day.
You certainly do. But look at absolutely stunning scenery, the backdrop for this race, as the Etixx Quick-Step team car gets just a little bit close, a little bit tasty on these narrow lanes. It's not just the race organisers and the Shimano neutral service, although these direct sportifs are very experienced. It's amazing how close they get from time to time. Fag paper clearance quite often.
Yeah, there's certainly times when it's a bit too tight for comfort, to be honest with you. But then again, you know, someone like Kwiatkowski here now, he's thinking everything about keeping on the wheel in the slipstream of Tim Wellens. When he's sitting behind him, making sure that he's saving as much energy as possible. He didn't necessarily want to sit next to the team car and end up losing the slipstream, so that's why he got a bit tight there.
Well, while we look at the group, still being led by Mikel Landa, very powerful rider. It's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to life at Team Sky. But that's next season. This is about the here and now.
He seems to like sitting on the front of a peloton, so I think he'll slot right in.
There we go. They do like to ride hard on the front, but no, it's going to be a good signing, I think. Be interesting to see how he does when given a completely free rein in the Grand Tours as we head to the back group. Still with Philippe Gilbert trying to make contact, but worth just going through some of the names we've managed to pull out of that group. Simon Yates is there for Orica Greenedge. He has with him a teammate in the form of the young Colombian Esteban Chavez. Also there is Diego Rosa, Vincenzo Nibali, we know, Mikel Landa driving on the front, George Bennett and Robert Haysink of Lotto NL Jumbo also there. Alejandro Valverde is in the mix, riding about fourth wheel. Thibaut Pinot is there for FDJ. Alexis Villermoz of FDJ also there. as we take another look at Cornobio. Again, some absolutely stunning views here today. Some other riders in the mix, just worth mentioning. Tom Jelte-Slagter from Cannondale Garmin. Amazu Beldia also there. Peter Kenyak, we believe, is in the move. Walt Poles also there. Danny Moreno, Roman Bardet, Giovanni Visconti. And also Canolo there for United Healthcare. He's doing well to hold on, considering he's been out in front pretty much all day. But I'm sure this group will start to whittle down once we reach the slopes of the penultimate climb. I just can't take my eyes off how stunning this scenery is.
Yeah, it is one of the most beautiful places in Italy, as far as I'm concerned, and certainly a lovely place to ride a bike as well.
It certainly is. Maybe not at these sorts of speeds, as we see the bunch, or the chasing group, 24.4 kilometers to go. Just go under one of these short tunnels before emerging into daylight, blinking into the daylight out the other side. Still Astana driving hard on the front.
It's quite interesting with these tunnels, and how there's no light in the tunnels either, so depending on the length of them, if they're reasonably long, it becomes completely pitch black in there. So you have to actually adapt a sort of a technique that it took me a couple of times before I learned what they were actually doing. But effectively, you're closing one eye sometime before you go into the tunnel, and then as soon as you enter the tunnel, then you lift your glasses down and you open up that eye, and you can see much better in the tunnel itself, and you adjust your eyesight to the dark in the tunnel.
Why didn't anybody tell me that? I never knew that. I just said take my sunglasses off and put them back on again and squint for all I was worth and hope that I sort of remained upright. Well, there we go. You live and learn. Culture and tips on how to ride tunnels here with Magnus Backstedt on Eurosport. Fantastic stuff. Well, we're going to take another commercial break while these two riders, Kwiatkowski and Wellens, lead El Lombardia with 23.8 to go. The race of the falling leaves slowly reaching its conclusion. 21.7 kilometers to go. We have two leaders, Michał Kwiatkowski of Poland and Etixx Quick-Step, and with him for company on these beautiful roads skirting Lake Como is Tim Wellens, the Belgian rider for Lotto Soudal. And in hot pursuit in the blue, as you can see on the front of this chasing group, it's Astana, Mikel Landa in particular. Been put to work on the front to try and bring this gap back. And another view of beautiful Como. Again, we'll say it again. Visually stunning, sumptuous, a wonderful place to stay, a wonderful place to hang out. And as Magnus Backstedt said a few moments ago, a quite spectacular place to enjoy riding your bicycle. But for these riders, they're thinking of something else. They're thinking of winning a monument. This is the final monument of the year. The year started out with Milan-San Remo. We then had Paris-Roubaix, the Tour of Flanders, Liège, Bastogne-Liège, and this is the fifth and final monument of the year, and an opportunity to add the race to their palmares. And this is where the road just starts to kick up a little bit. This is the penultimate climb of the Cerviglio. We reached the top of this climb with 16.6 kilometers to go, but more importantly, it's 4.2 kilometers in length. Welcome back to British Eurosport viewers. We're on the climb of the Cerviglio now. Our two leaders have a handful of seconds. You can just see the neutral service motorbikes just going past. They're just on the foot slopes of the Cerviglio. And Magnus, just talk us through the gradients and what the riders are about to face.
Well, it's about 9.7% average, and it kicks up to, like, it starts at 9.2 and then basically hovers around about there all the time. And we've got the final couple of 100 meters is up at just over 10%, almost up towards 11%. So it is a brutal climb straight away. You just turn into it. There's no foot slopes to it. It's just basically a brick wall that you're going straight up. And this is going to be an absolute brutal climb. 4 kilometers long or just thereover. Like I said, the Cerviglio is going to be one of the deciding factors as into who stays in this race, who's going to be in contention when we're coming in towards the finish.
Well, that said, Tom Jelte-Slagter just losing contact there for Team Cannondale Garmin. The other rider was from Spain, Etixx Quick-Step, Carlos Verona, and Michał Kwiatkowski on his own at the moment. He looks strong on the climb before. Just changes down and gets into rhythm. The climb not quite as brutal, but look who's chasing behind. Astana reeling the former world champion back in And look who's also there, a couple of riders from Team Sky. We know Mikel Nieve, we didn't mention him, he's also managed to infiltrate this group. Romain Bardet just at the back. Esteban Chavez just sat on the wheel of Vincenzo Nibali at the moment.
Yeah, well, certainly Kwiatkowski's being put very much under pressure here by the whole Astana team, and you know, they're keeping a strong pace going here, and they're thinning out from the back. There is only, what, 15 riders left in that group now.
It looks like we've got Sergio Henao also in that group for Team Sky. So Team Sky grouping very well. They've got Henao there. They've definitely got Wout Poels. Very easy to spot. Number 168, one of the Yates brothers. That's Simon Yates just losing contact. Warren Barguil of France just in front, showing that this race starting to take its toll. Remember, the monuments very, very long in distance, and again, so late into the year, lots of riders really finding it hard. 243 kilometers, and it looks as if the junction has been made.
Yeah, definitely. That brake's been shut down and nullified, and like I said, there's only a few very, very select riders left in this group here now. Looks like Sky has still got 2 riders in here as well, if not 3 actually still.
It looks like they've still got 3 there, but Romain Bardet just starting to lose contact, dropping back. And Michał Kwiatkowski has gone straight through that group. He's been caught by the Astana team and is now sitting last man, starting to fight his bike. Tim Wellens is there too. Esteban Chavez looking very, very good. Alejandro Valverde, Dani Moreno, Thibaut Pinot also there for FDJ in the white, red and blue. And it looks incredibly like Vasily Kirienka is also there.
No, I think that's well, Poels there on the left-hand side, just on the back here now.
My mistake, definitely Wout Poels there. We saw Kirienka struggling at the back, but look at the pace being set here now. We knew Astana would do this. Diego Rosa has had a great few weeks, a win to his name as well. But here we go, Vincenzo Nibali taking it up on his own now.
Followed by Chavez. So
Chavez now just getting into the slipstream of Vincenzo Nibali. He knew he'd use his team to work. He's just trying to thin things down. Dani Moreno brings Alejandro Valverde and Thibaut Pinot across from FDJ. Now there's just a distinct gap. It looks like Henao of Team Sky trying to get back in contact. Mikel Landa still there. Also looks like Gianluca Brambilla of Etixx Quickstep just sat at the back of that group. Only about 9 riders left in the mix. Wout Poels in no man's land in the convoy now.
Yeah, Poels is looking like he's certainly struggling here at Diego Rosa's coming back and getting on the front again and keeping that pace going high.
I think that's what Astana said they were going to do, just keep that pace very, very high. Diego Rosa's actually just drifted off the front. Looking very, very strong is the Italian.
Good move by Sergio Henao following Diego Rosa here now, because this could be one of those moments where you can just about drift away off the front of the group. Everyone's staring at Nibali. What's he going to do?
Well, Mikel Nieve is the last rider for Team Sky in that group, just on the wheel of Brambilla. Just to the left on the inside is the Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot, on that famous stage this year in the Tour de France of Alpe d'Huez. But Rosa has been caught.
Keep an eye on Valverde now, because I think he will be coming out of this group relatively soon. If he sees that Rosa and Henao getting too big a gap, then I think he will jump across.
This is a very interesting situation here. Henao now goes to the front. Rosa on his wheel. Brambilla now moves across for Etixx Quickstep. As the long shadows, the sun starts to set, the shadows become long. Brambilla now trying to fight to get back across that gap. Fascinating racing here.
I actually think it might be Carlos Verona.
We'll get a check on that in a moment. But all square once more. There's Wout Poels only about 15 or 20 meters behind. Pinot looking ominous. He hasn't made any moves yet. Lots of looking around at the moment. Thibaut Pinot surges across, closes the gap.
There's 2 kilometers left to go of this climb, so there's an awful lot of climbing to be done yet at the same gradient all the way up to the top.
It's, yeah, constant climb, this one. And again, Diego Rosa, rather than attacking, he's going to stay with his team leader. If you look at the composition of this group now, if Wout Poels gets back in contact, they'll have 2 riders there, so 2 from Astana, 2 from Team Sky. It looks as if Poels has just about managed to get onto the wheel of the last rider in this group. Who will make the next move? Very, very interesting scenes here. De Rosa looking, it looks like Wout Poels has conceded now on his radio, just telling him what the situation is. A little bit, one climb too far perhaps for the rider from the Netherlands. And again we see Vincenzo Nibali attack on the slopes of the penultimate climb, but look at the ease of which Esteban Chaves follows his wheel.
Yeah, Chaves looking very, very strong indeed, and this could be the moment now to press on.
Oh, Henao now, Sergio Henao starting to struggle, just losing contact, the change of pace. We know that Vincenzo Nibali has the ability to accelerate, throttle back and then go again. He's opened up a little bit of a gap as Chaves not willing to work with the Italian at the moment. Lots of glances over the shoulder, and it's been left to the Spaniard Dani Moreno with another Spaniard, the Spanish champion in the form of Alejandro Valverde on his wheel. Mikel Nieve just on the back of this group as well, starting to really thin down now. And the rider that looks the most dangerous to me at the moment is Alejandro Valverde. Looks very, very ominous, just sat there in fourth wheel in the dark blue and green of Movistar.
The thing is with Valverde in here, they need to really try and get rid of him and go on their own, because he's too fast in the finish.
Just under 18 kilometers to go in the 109th edition of Il Lombardia. We have an elite group of riders just going clear on the penultimate climb of the day of the Civiglia. Vincenzo Nibali is here, leading at the moment, the Italian road champion. Just on the inside, another road champion, this time from Spain, Alejandro Valverde. Had a fantastic year, but the attack on the right-hand side comes from Thibaut Pinot of FDJ. The Frenchman is followed by Mikel Nieve, immediately followed by Rosa. This is an interesting situation playing out on the roads today.
This is a dangerous move now. Very, very dangerous move.
Thibaut Pinot looks very, very strong. He's had a wonderful season.
It's going to come down to effectively Valverde and Moreno to do the majority of the work here. I don't think Chaves is going to do anything as Moreno goes.
It's definitely a little bit of brinkmanship, just watching each other. Valverde and Vincenzo Nibali, the riders, exchanging all those furtive glances, but Brambilla now, after riding so well, has got to catch that sudden increase of pace, the cranking up of the pressure. And Dani Moreno, again, sensing that these two riders, well, not sensing, knowing he cannot afford to let riders of the caliber of Mikel Nieve and Thibaut Pinot go clear.
But then again, what's likely to happen is that he keeps on working and getting himself back into contention again, and as soon as they get back on, Nibali and probably Chaves will follow again, and this time it's Nieve.
A great move by Nieve on the right-hand side there. Signed again for Team Sky. We thought they was going to make a bit of a move, but looking very, very good. All the other riders just looking at each other. Pinot decides to accelerate. This is like the racing of old. We're used to seeing sudden, well, smooth tempos on these climbs. It's lovely when you see the riders accelerating. Makes for very exciting racing, breathless racing. But Rosa looking extremely strong. Pinot struggling to hold the wheel of the Italian.
Yeah, Rosa's doing some big turns and then going on the attacks and following the attacks all the time. So he's certainly doing his fair share of the work for his team leader today.
He is indeed looking very, very good. Dragging Pinot clear. This is where the road just kicks up on those hairpins. And Pinot now just willing to give Rosa a little bit of a turn. Who is going to chase? It is down again to Dani Moreno of Katusha. Remember, they have one other climb after this one. They drop down. And then with 5.6 kilometers to go, they have the final climb of the day at San Fermo della Battaglia.
Well, the last kilometre here now is up at 10.5 to 10.8%. So it's certainly the toughest part of the climb.
And Mikel Nieve fighting still to get back in terms, bobbing and weaving, dragging his frame up this climb. That's the competition of the composition of the group. Nibali, Valverde, Moreno, Rosa, Chaves. Now the acceleration comes from the shark himself, leans on the pedals, rises out of the saddle, accelerates away, and only one man can go with him as the Tifosi chase behind. Here's that moment in slow motion, the way he stamps on the pedals there, the power he's putting through his bike at the moment. Vincenzo Nibali in imperious form at the moment, has 2 victories already at the back end of the year. Thibaut Pinot holding his wheel, and it's down to Dani Moreno to try and shut the gap.
Yeah, well, Moreno, Moreno, Valverde and Chavez are the guys that are going to have to do the work here to try and get this back. But I've got to say, though, I was very impressed with the reaction and acceleration of Thibaut Pinot as well to be able to get onto the wheel of Nibali when he's coming through at the speed and with the power that he was producing at the time. But here comes Moreno, he's coming back.
Yeah, Moreno looking good, and all of these accelerations at the front. Poor Mikel Nieve is yo-yoing off the back of this group. But as you say, Thibaut Pinot in fine form, 4th place in Milan-Torino, 12th place in Trevali-Varecin, so clearly going well. But the man who seems to be bringing things back together with alarming irregularity, Alejandro Valverde playing poker, and it's Danny Moreno. He seems to be doing all of the chasing. Esteban Chavez happy just to sit back, but again, it all comes back together. 6 riders now left at the head of affairs. Still Diego Rosa at the back of the group, so Astana have strength in numbers. Mikel Nieve, an agonizing 15 meters off the back of this group. And again, the pace just eases slightly, giving these riders just a chance to take a breath.
Yeah, definitely. Nieves is in all sorts of trouble. They're trying to get back into the race as well. Obviously, we've got a bit of a descent coming after this particular climb, but then pretty much straight into the final climb of the day. So Diego Rosa back on the front here now, then driving on, keeping that pace high, trying to make sure that they get rid of Mikel Nieve. Exciting racing, this.
It certainly is. Trading blows on this penultimate climb of the day. As it kicked up, that group detonated. It was around 20 to 25 strong. As we see, Rosa just taking a swig from his bidon. When they crest this climb, they plummet down the other side, past Como again, before the penultimate climb of the day to San Fermo della Battaglia. Not quite as brutal an affair as this particular climb, but hard nonetheless. They're just coming to the top of the climb now. Then they drop down a couple of meters of flat before the penultimate climb of the day. Maxes out at 10%, 2.7 kilometers in length. But will there be enough road, as we see Mikel Nieve just manage to get himself back in contact for any other riders to get back in the mix, or is this going to be the group that takes it all the way to the finish? Seven riders left in contention. The final monument of the season, Il Lombardia. The 109th edition of the Race of the Falling Leaves, and we have 2 riders from Astana. We have an attack on the right-hand side by Vincenzo Nibali. Very well-timed attacks. Danny Moreno of Katusha, again, who tries to shut things down.
Yeah, well, you don't want to let Nibali get too much of a gap on the descent either, because he's the one man who will take those risks, and he is incredibly quick at descending, as his motorbike is just finding out.
Just sit back in your sofas, your armchairs, or wherever you may be, and admire the descending skills of Vincenzo Nibali. Sat on the top tube, as we saw Peter Sagan do last week at the World Championships in Richmond. Just enjoy the thrill ride of this descent. Vincenzo Nibali throwing his bike around these corners. Danny Moreno takes a wider line, slows down.
Yeah, didn't get that right.
He certainly didn't. Alejandro Valverde wasn't willing to sit in front at all. Alejandro Valverde not happy just to sit on the front and chase. You can see him just dropping back a little bit, leaving it to Thibaut Pinot.
Yeah, and this is also a fair amount of road knowledge, knowing exactly how sharp these corners are, what he can and can't do going through them. But Nibali, just looking at the commitment going into that, just presses down the front tire into the ground and just leaning into it.
He's certainly taken some risks on this descent, but we know he's come out, checked out the course. He was out with his director sportif, Giuseppe Martinelli. Just away, throws his bikes into corner. That one did go a little bit wider, but this is the difference. This is what it's about. Those little differences, that extra little bit of risk-taking is the differential between an also-ran and a champion of the sport. And he's managing to open up a lead, but Alejandro Valverde now senses he cannot let Vincenzo Nibali any sort of distance on this climb. Mikel Nieve is back in the mix. Looks like he got it a bit wrong on that corner.
Well, he's just pushing it to the very, very limit indeed, and taking every second that he can out of the chasing group. And having been descending with Nibali in the past, I know exactly what this man is capable of, and that's still with margin in the world of Nibali.
Well, that was certainly an interesting, unorthodox way to that corner. But again, this is a man on the edge. This is a man who wants to take his first monument. The Tour de France champion last year, unceremoniously booted out of the Vuelta a España this year, but since then has had 2 victories under his belt in the form of Coppa Bernocchi and Tre Valli Valicin. So he's a man in good form and is focused on this race. At the moment looking very dangerous indeed, leaving the other 6 riders to chase behind.
I don't think that that kilometer ticker up in the top corner there is actually right, because we crested this climb at 16.6 kilometers, and Nibali is still leaving only a couple of centimeters on the exit of every turn, and he's definitely committed to this. And I got to say, he's got a good 20-second gap now.
Well, he's opened it up. We saw him accelerate clear on the first moment that the gradient started to go down for the top of that climb, and he's got at least one straight. He's opened it up. It'd be great if we could get a time check here. That's more like it. 12 kilometers to go. Yeah. A correction there on our screen. But Nibali now going solo, descending like an absolute demon, taking risks all the way, throwing his bike, looking for the racing line, cutting the apexes of the corner, braking extremely late. This is an absolute thrill ride, a demonstration of skill and panache on the run into the finish of Il Lombardia. I think we're going to use monkey numbers here for trying to guess this. We're going to get our clocks out in a minute. It looks, I think, Magnus, that we've got around 15 seconds. Look at the way Nibali was banking his bike over, really pushing the tyre grip trade-off to the maximum there. Still staying upright. Thankfully, the roads have dried. We had a bit of a damp start, but Rosa now goes to the front, slows things down a little bit. The cohesion has gone from this group. 12 kilometers to go, Magnus. The pendulum swinging perhaps a little bit in the favour of Nibali.
And watching Diego Rosa now getting out of, well, just get out of the way to that motorbike, and Nibali is certainly not very happy about that one either. But Diego Rosa got onto the front of the following group and actually taking some strange lines. This is the motorbike now not actually getting it right, and it didn't understand exactly where Nibali was coming or how quickly he was coming up at him.
Well, the shark of Messina just managed to swim the wrong way around that motorbike, but still kept upright. Another swig of the bottle, cools himself down. It's looking very good at the moment. He's opening up that gap. Would be great if we could get confirmation of the time check as we head into the last few kilometers of this race. Mikel Nieve of Team Sky is here. He's on the front at the moment in the dark blue. Takes that corner. Little bit wide again. That's another couple of seconds lost. Esteban Chavez of Orica Greenedge at the back of this group. The impetus has gone now.
The fact that they're not actually accelerating maximum out of those corners, and Diego Rosa obviously sitting up there all the time, kind of getting a little bit in the way, not in a big way, but just you know, when they let him in, he's obviously going to take the corner in whichever way he wants, and that messes up the lines for everyone else, which means they're getting through the corner in the wrong way, and then having to put more effort in to actually accelerating back up to speed, and that gives this man, Vincenzo Nibali, all the sort of, well, he gives him a massive advantage.
He certainly does. Well, he's gracefully shaving seconds off these corners. We're finally getting a little bit of work, a little bit of cohesion in this group behind. Chavez moved through. Mikel Nieve, we've just got confirmation. We had 30 seconds, 25 seconds with 10 kilometers to go of Il Lombardia. So under 10 kilometers to go now for Vincenzo Nibali, the shark of Messina, sensing blood, sensing a victory and driving home. Another couple of kilometers of flat roads, and then we have the final climb of the day, the San Fermo de Battaglia, 2.7 kilometers in length, 7.2% average gradient with a maximum of 10%. Looking smooth, looking strong, looking lean. Nine kilometers to go, and Dani Moreno, the Spaniard on the Katusha team, goes to the front of this chasing group. closely flanked by the rider who will not assist in the chase whatsoever. Hence that little polite push from Alejandro Valverde.
Yeah, it was kind of just pushing him out of the way, so gently there, saying, no, you know, you need to sit on the back there, get out of our way and let us work together. There's still that climb to come, so I don't think it's completely over yet for Nibali, depending on what happens in the group behind. If anyone's got the legs to actually go up this climb hard, they could close down, you know, a 20-30 second gap. It's a long enough climb, it's steep enough. If Nibali effectively empties the tank here on the flat, getting to the final climb, then it could be an opportunity for someone like Valverde, or certainly Moreno looked very strong on the previous climb. They could close him down.
Yeah, he's looking good. They've got the Vittoria neutral service car in. We know that the lead is gradually going out. We've heard 27 seconds is the gap. And generally speaking, the neutral service won't get slotted in between the lead rider and the chasing group unless the gap is 30 seconds. So a very healthy lead at the moment. Here's the group behind. It looks like a couple of other riders have got back in contact there. It looks like Galopan and Brambilla are back in the mix. Also another rider from Team Sky. And that'll be the Colombian Sergio Henao is back in the mix. That will add to the firepower. We're now on the final climb of the day.
Yeah, starting to go up the final climb, but is it a bit too late for all of these riders here now? Obviously, with the group being bigger, there's more riders in there to be able to do the turns and keep pressing on. But I'm surprised that no one's really told Diego Rosa Henao to get out of the way, because it's something that I certainly would have done if I was in that group now. I would have just told them, look, get yourself onto the back here, or you know, there will be some serious repercussions from that.
Yeah, he's on the climb now. Henao has been put to task on the front of the group for Team Sky. 7.5 kilometers to go for the Italian road champion Vincenzo Nibali. Second time he's had the title. Back-to-back victories with just on the lower slopes. When we reach the top, there'll be 5.3 kilometers to go. 44 seconds is the lead. We're getting 41 on the screen there. We're getting information through from Race Radar that it is going up all the time. And Vincenzo Nibali looking so strong and so smooth. But we've now got some counter-attacks coming through. Yeah,
we've got counter-attacks, and every time Diego Rosa is there, he's responding to them, which means that no one else is. And Chavez is cramped.
Yeah, Chavez definitely looked like he'd cramped up. And on the right-hand side was Mikel Nieve of Team Sky. The Spaniard attacking a very sharp, stinging acceleration, drawing the effort from Thibaut Pinot, fighting to stay on his wheel. Here's a group just behind.
Gesink and Pols.
Gesink and Pols, the Netherlands duo. They're out of the action still. Very good placing for them on the cards. Top 15 perhaps. Meanwhile, at the head of affairs, we have Thibaut Pinot accelerating from that group. What an attack from the Frenchman.
Yeah, definitely. He knows that he needs to do something here now to get away from this group, because with Valverde in here as well, if we're coming in towards a sprint, then pretty much everyone in that group is lining up for second place.
They certainly are. Thibaut Pinot looking very good. Has he got enough to try and get across this gap? 40 seconds is the lead, so a couple of seconds have been taken out. Vincenzo Nibali on the hairpin, turning quite a low gear, urged on by the crowds at the side of the road. He is an absolute hero, and he'll become an icon if he manages to land this monument. But this man on your screen from FDJ certainly has other thoughts. But again, that man, Danny Moreno, quick to try and bring things back together.
Yeah, he doesn't respond to the attack still, but he just gets on the front and just puts a very high pace on, and just keeps on dragging back. In this, it almost looks like he would be riding for Valverde at this point.
It took the words from my mouth. It seems, unless he's that confident in the sprint, it just seems that Danny Moreno hasn't launched an attack himself, but he's willing to bring back riders. That can be so frustrating. An interesting tactic, but looking at the moment, Moreno has brought Thibaut Pinot back to heel and is dragging Alejandro Valverde into contention, but Rosa is also still there.
Yeah, Rosa is looking very strong. I reckon he could have won today if he'd actually been racing for himself. He's looking that good that he would have been able to do a similar type of attack to as Nibali's just done.
Well, Vincenzo Nibali with only 6.7 Ks to go. This is the situation behind. Finally, Danny Moreno has managed to move clear. He's attacked rather than just drag people back. Perhaps that's just the style of riding. You do see riders that would rather just keep one even pace rather than those sharp staccato type of accelerations. but Vincenzo Nibali affords a quick glance over his shoulder. That's what you can do on these climbs, Mags. You can look back down to the hairpins immediately below.
Yeah, you certainly can, and work out roughly where you are, and a couple of turns later on, you do the same thing and effectively work out what the difference is. But Danny Moreno here now just getting on the front and driving the pace. Thibaut Pinot, is he cracking here, or is he able to hold on?
He's looking, I mean, there's 25 seconds. Danny Moreno is eating into the lead. It looks like he's gradually dropping. Thibaut Pinot, you could just see by the expression on his face, this is a quite remarkable piece of riding from Danny Moreno. On that hairpin, he slows a bit, accelerates out. Thibaut Pinot struggling with the bike on a lower gear, but Danny Moreno on a far bigger gear, leaning it in, creating vast amounts of torque. That bobbing style of Thibaut Pinot. Danny Moreno looking very, very strong here.
Yeah, he certainly looks like the strongest rider in the final here. The question is, though, is there enough road for him to get Nibali back? And obviously we got a bit of a descent here as well, like you said earlier. Crest at 5.3 kilometers, then we got a descent for till about a kilometer to go, and then it's just flat on in all the way into the finish line.
Well, there's only about 600 or 700 meters to go of this climb. They'll soon be at the top. Danny Moreno has left it very late, but it looks as if Vincenzo Nibali is slowing. But remember, this is a very steep climb. It does pitch up at 10% just near the top before the riders go over. On the split screen there, we have a Tony Gallopin in that group of riders for Lotto Soudal just at the back. 6 kilometers to go for Vincenzo Nibali.
Yeah, 6K to go, and we just saw Stefano Zanini, the ex-pro rider himself, getting up there, encouraging Nibali and letting him know what's going on behind him. And what's going on behind is that Danny Moreno is coming at some speed.
He certainly is. Through the gloom, you can just see the lights of the motorbike behind as the riders go under these little tunnels that punctuate this course on the run-in to the finish in Como. How much has he got left? What is the gap? The neutral service car is told to leave the gap behind. Danny Moreno is definitely bearing down on this man in front, but the lead is still there. "17 seconds is the lead for this man on the left of the screen, Vincenzo Nibali. The man pursuing behind, down to 14 seconds now, is Danny Moreno. Magnus Backstedt, can Moreno get back in contact with Vincenzo Nibali?
Well, that's the question. He's certainly looking like he's going at almost twice the speed to Nibali going up this final ramps. And if he can make it up, this is going to be a very interesting final, because obviously with the descent coming up as well, and then we got that flat bit of running towards the finish. Number one, can Danny Moreno stay with Nibali on the descent? And then who's the faster man in the sprint?
Yeah, I mean, we know Vincenzo Nibali is reasonably quick in the sprint, but of course he's been away for a while. His legs are going to be tired, but we saw the skill and the prowess of this man on the descent. They're just coming over the top, and Danny Moreno doesn't quite have Vincenzo Nibali in his sights. This is going to fall in favour of the man to the left of your screen in the Italian champion's jersey. He's the reigning Italian road champion. Is he going to add this monument to his palmares? He's on the descent, and Danny Moreno still yet to get onto that plateau before the gradient lessens onto the descent. It's looking good for Nibali at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is looking good, and shifts up to the big chainring again and gets onto the power. And this, I think Danny Moreno could have just spotted Nibali there on that straight.
Well, meanwhile, behind, Henao is there with Diego Rosa as well. It's all about this man. He throws himself into these bends. You have to be so careful. You just saw the moisture dropping down onto the surface of the road. That's when you get that surface change. Very, very slippery. Thankfully,
and you can see straight away the difference in speed going through these corners. There's no way that Danny Moreno's getting back to Vincenzo Nibali on that descent.
It was quite visible there, the difference in pace, the way they took that line, a very cautious approach. I don't really blame him. We can just see that in slow motion again as we head back to the front. Look at the difference. Look at the way that Nibali is throwing his bike, not recklessly, but with immense confidence.
Yeah, I think that's the right way of putting it, but actually pedaling through a large part of these corners as well. He's staying on the power, and then he feels like, okay, it's just dropping off, and straight away on the power and using every centimetre of the road. This is just textbook descending.
Just again, please just sit back and watch, enjoy the thrill ride. Look at Nibali, look at the technique. Dani Moreno is a great bike rider, but he does not have the same ability to descend at the speeds, noticeably slower in those corners. It's treacherous as a bike rider myself, and as many as you will know, when you get that change in road surface and the wet and the dry, it makes for a very, very nervous descent.
Yeah, it certainly does. And like I said, when Nibali was just coming onto the circuit in riding for Liquigas already, Dani was a very, very good descender. And certainly for a guy who's an immense climber, you know, his confidence and his skills on the bike is just second to none, really. It might be the odd sprinter who could go down slightly quicker, but they would struggle to put any time into Vincenzo Nibali.
An extremely gifted bike rider indeed. We saw him conquer the cobbles when he won the Tour de France. Nearly came to grief on a traffic roundabout there, using the best of his bike handling skills to get out of that rather difficult situation. Thankfully, again, he's come out the other end. I think it just shows he's not exactly throwing caution to the wind, but the margins for error here are so minimal. This is, again, the difference between wanting something. He's showing an immense desire and drive, will and hunger to win this race.
Yeah, but you can see that every time he goes through one of these corners, he's putting another second or so into the chase. And even if he hasn't quite got the legs of Dani Moreno at this particular moment in time, you know, just Moreno claws a second back on the straights and loses it again coming through any of these corners. And it's a visible difference in the cornering speed between the two.
That certainly is. It really is something to behold. And when you think of when he attacked, he tried to go on the climb. He softened the legs of the opponents on the penultimate climb of the day. But when he was on the descent, very, very impressive. Showed a lot of tactical nous. We know he's invested time in going through the course, checking every corner, riding these descents, and this really does show.
Well, it does show, and that I would call being a professional bike rider. You've got to do your homework to be able to win, and this is a man who's got the knowledge of the course, and he realizes that he can use that to his advantage. He is a very good descender, and then knowing exactly every turn and memorizing the lines that are possible to take and aren't possible to take, and using the maximum out of that is just what you have to do to win one of these races nowadays.
But what a spectacle it makes for the viewers.
Oh, definitely.
For the fans of the sport. We've seen some spectacular racing this year on Eurosport. The World Championships last week. Almost won on the descent too by Peter Sagan, but what a treat we're in for today. .2 kilometers to go. Il Lombardia reaches its climax, and the man on your screen, the Shark of Messina, Vincenzo Nibali, the champion of Italy, about to be crowned again. Il Lombardia will be the first time he has won a monument, 8 times a participant in this race, still has a couple of kilometers to go, but the man pursuing him behind, Dani Moreno, the gap is around 14 seconds.
Yeah, coming down now, I think it's just going inside the 1 kilometer to go here now, and Vincenzo Nibali is definitely taking home the monument.
He certainly is. Well, there we go, 300 meters to go. So we got our timings wrong a little bit there. There we go, the Sicilian, 30 years of age. Vincenzo Nibali takes the victory. Oh, so sweet. There are the flags. Fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. Vincenzo Nibali wins Il Lombardia, and look at that, an Italian flag lands on his chest at that moment. Italy, Astana, Vincenzo Nibali take Il Lombardia. And in second place, a brave ride, was a little bit too late for this man, but Dani Moreno of Katusha takes a fine second place. Wonderful ride by him, but it wasn't to be. Outsmarted, outfoxed, outpaced. And Thibaut Pinot of FDJ crosses the line in third place. A fine ride by him. The best of the rest, and here is the sprint. Diego Rosa takes up Alejandro Valverde, Mikel Nieve there. It doesn't look like Alejandro Valverde can come round Rosa. It was a cool photo finish, just looks as if Alejandro Valverde took 4th place there. But all about this man on your screen. What a virtuoso performance.
What a ride by Nibali, and just the fact that he it didn't attack on the sort of traditional points on the course, but actually left everyone behind him on the descent, and I would have suspected that people would be aware of his descending ability now, and actually someone like Valverde would have gone with him, because Valverde is also a very good bike handler. You can't let Nibali get 20, 30, 40 meters on the descent, because you know that you're unlikely to see him again.
Well, there we go. Absolutely correct. Races are won in moments. 243 kilometers, but at that moment, that acceleration on the descent of the penultimate climb was the moment this man won the race. He still had 15 or so kilometers to ride solo, but he did it. Worked out, carved out that lead on the ensuing bends. What a fantastic victory. It'll be a very, very popular victory. There we go. There's your top 10. Nibali wins Il Lombardia. Danny Moreno of Katusha in second place. Thibaut Pinot of France and FDJ in third. Valverde fourth. Diego Rosa did so much work today in fifth place. But there we go. The 109th edition of Il Lombardia, taken by Vincenzo Nibali, the Shark of Messina.